You know, when a massive estate gets passed on, it can spark an equally massive fight with federal tax authorities. Today, we're going to do a deep analytical breakdown of one of these cases to really understand the mechanics, the pressure points, and frankly, the critical lessons for anyone thinking about estate planning. All right, let's just jump right in. At the absolute center of this battle is one incredible figure, $700 million. That is the amount in taxes and penalties a federal tax agency claims is owed by the estate of a legendary performer. It's a number so huge it just makes you ask. And that's really the question we're digging into today. See, this isn't just about one high-profile case. It's about getting to the bottom of the principles that can turn a simple estate plan into an all-out legal war zone. We're going to unpack the core problems and, more importantly, the strategic lessons we can pull from it. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the core conflict. What started this whole thing? Then we'll dive into the scrutiny principle that really applies to these huge estates. We'll cover the immediate financial aftermath for the heirs, pull out 3 critical defensive lessons, and finally, we'll talk about why a beneficiary backup plan is so important. So where in the world does a $700 million argument even start? Well, it all boils down to one of the trickiest parts of estate taxes, figuring out what the assets are actually worth. The entire dispute, every legal brief, every consequence, it all grows from this one single point of disagreement. Now, that definition seems straightforward enough, right? But in practice, it is incredibly complex. Estate asset valuation is the foundation that all estate taxes are built on. If you get this number wrong, or if someone can successfully challenge it, the entire financial structure of that estate can just crumble. And this right here is the heart of the problem. On one side, you've got the estate's reported value, which their own private appraisers came up with. But on the other side, you have the tax agency's assessment, which was way, way higher. This huge gap is what triggered the legal battle and led to those massive penalties being claimed. So you have to wonder, why does a gap that big even happen? Well, it's often because of an unwritten rule in the world of high-stakes tax law, what you could call the high net worth scrutiny effect. Ultra-wealthy estates don't just get audited, they get put under a microscope. This is the basic idea driving the tax agency's strategy. It's simple, really. An estate worth hundreds of millions or even billions is a huge potential payday for the government. So the bigger the estate, the more incentive the tax agency has to throw resources at challenging its value. And make no mistake, this level of scrutiny isn't random. It's totally strategic. Tax agencies go after these estates because 1, the potential recovery is massive. 2, a win for them sets a precedent that makes their job easier in future cases. And 3, there's this perception that the more complex an estate is, the more likely it is to have a weak spot they can attack. Now, the consequences of this intense scrutiny aren't just legal or financial for the estate itself. They hit the intended beneficiaries hard and fast. When a fight of this size kicks off, one of the very first things that happens is the money just stops flowing. And that's the immediate, real-world gut punch. While all the lawyers and accountants are duking it out, the heirs, the people this whole plan was designed to help, are totally cut off. They've been blocked from getting their funds, which puts them under incredible financial strain, no matter how much they were supposed to inherit. This whole situation, as awful as it is for the people involved, is actually a powerful case study for the rest of us. So how do you fortify a high-value estate against this kind of attack? Well, this case gives us 3 critical defensive lessons that are absolutely essential for smart estate planning. The key here is to be proactive, not reactive. It comes down to 3 things. First, you have to assemble an elite defense right from the start. Second, you have to master the valuation process to make it as bulletproof as possible. And third, you need to create a backup plan for your beneficiaries so they're not left high and dry. Okay, lesson 1 is all about understanding the level of threat you're facing. For an ultra high net worth estate, your standard plan just won't cut it. you have to assume you're going to face intense scrutiny. That means hiring a small army of top-tier lawyers and tax experts to stress test every single part of your plan, hunting for any weakness a tax agency might exploit. And that brings us to lesson number 2, which might be the most crucial piece of the puzzle. According to experts, the valuation itself has to be absolutely ironclad. Using highly reputable, licensed appraisers who can actually get on a stand and defend their work in court isn't just a good idea, it's non-negotiable. A solid, well-documented valuation is your single best defense. All right, this final defensive lesson is one that gets overlooked all the time. Why? Because it shifts the focus from just protecting the assets to actually protecting the beneficiaries themselves. We're talking about the beneficiary backup plan, making sure they can be financially independent, especially during a crisis. Just think about it. If your heirs are totally dependent on distributions from a trust to live their lives, they become incredibly vulnerable the second those assets get frozen. So a key long-term strategy is to give them the tools and the knowledge to build their own financial independence, completely separate from the estate. And the benefits here are just enormous. Of course, it protects them if the trust is frozen, but it does so much more. It promotes financial literacy, it helps them create their own streams of wealth, and it dramatically reduces the personal and financial pressure on them while the estate's lawyers are fighting it out in court. So, at the end of the day, this whole dispute has 2 possible endings, and the stakes could not be any higher. If the estate wins, their valuation stands, and the trust funds finally get released. But if the tax agency wins, the estate could be forced to pay up to $700 million. That would gut the estate and severely limit what the beneficiaries ever see. This case is such a powerful reminder for anyone who's planning their legacy. It really forces you to ask a tough question. Have you built your estate plan to be a fortress, something designed to withstand the highest levels of attack? Or, by overlooking these kinds of critical defenses, have you accidentally made it a target,